Imagine checking into a luxury hotel, only to be singled out, questioned, and escorted away for no clear reason. That's exactly what happened to Barron Trump, but what followed was even more shocking. A public spectacle, viral footage, and a response that no one saw coming. The Grand Orion Hotel in New York City was known for its exclusivity, a five-star retreat for the world's elite, from Hollywood celebrities to high-profile business moguls. Its VIP check-in lounge, separate from the bustling main lobby, was a haven of luxury, offering personalized service, champagne on arrival, and absolute discretion. On this particular evening, Barron Trump, now 17 years old, arrived at the hotel alone, dressed casually in a hoodie and sneakers, carrying nothing but a sleek black duffel bag. He had become used to traveling discreetly, avoiding unnecessary attention. For him, this was just another check-in. A quick process before settling into his suite for a quiet weekend. The lounge was filled with guests, business executives reviewing contracts, a famous singer whispering to her assistant, and an older couple enjoying a glass of wine. The staff moved swiftly, catering to their every need, ensuring that everything ran smoothly, efficiently, and most importantly, without unnecessary delays. Yet as Barron stepped toward the check-in counter, he noticed the concierge Philip Ross giving him a second glance, not out of recognition, but with a hint of doubt. And in that moment, Barron had no idea that what should have been a routine check-in was about to become something much bigger. As Barron Trump approached the VIP check-in counter, he expected a smooth, uneventful process. Instead, he was met with a scrutinizing look from Philip Ross, the concierge. A seasoned hotel employee in his early 50s, Philip prided himself on maintaining order in the hotel's most exclusive space. But as his eyes scanned Barron's casual attire, a hoodie, sneakers, and no visible entourage, his expression shifted from professional to skeptical. Philip cleared his throat. "Excuse me, sir. This lounge is for VIP check-ins only." Barron, unfazed, nodded. "I know, I have a reservation for the presidential suite." He slid his phone across the counter, displaying his confirmation email. Philip barely glanced at the screen before responding, "I see. Do you have identification?" Barron arched an eyebrow. He had traveled enough times to know that VIP guests weren't usually asked for ID so aggressively. Still, he pulled out his passport and handed it over. Philip took his time inspecting it, flipping it over unnecessarily. "Just a moment, sir, I need to verify something." He turned toward the computer, pretending to search the system, though he already knew the name would be there. Meanwhile, other guests in the lounge began to take notice. Some murmured amongst themselves, a few pulling out their phones, sensing something unusual about the interaction. Barron let out a slow breath, keeping his composure, but inside, he felt the familiar weight of being judged before being understood. And as the seconds dragged on, he knew this wasn't going to be a simple misunderstanding, it was something more. Barron waited patiently, his hands resting in his pockets as Philip Ross continued typing on his computer, his expression unreadable. The tension in the room grew thick as the seconds stretched into minutes. Other guests were checking in without issue, their interactions smooth and swift, yet Barron was still standing there, being held up without any real explanation. Finally, Barron exhaled, his patience thinning. "Is there an issue with my reservation?" he asked, his tone calm but firm. Philip didn't look up. "We're just running additional verifications, sir. It shouldn't take long." Barron's grip tightened around his phone. He had flown internationally, stayed at some of the world's most exclusive hotels, and never had to go through additional verification. He knew exactly what this was. A test. An unnecessary roadblock. A gatekeeper deciding whether or not he belonged. Philip, sensing Barron's growing frustration, turned and gestured to a nearby security officer, Damian Carter. The tall, uniformed man approached the counter, his expression neutral, but his presence immediately raised the stakes. "Is there a problem here?" Damian asked, looking between Barron and Philip. Barron's stomach dropped slightly. This was escalating faster than he expected. Philip leaned in, his voice slightly lower but still loud enough for those around them to hear. "I think it would be best if we handled this privately. Could you escort Mr. Trump to the security office while we confirm his reservation?" Barron took a slow breath, feeling the weight of the situation shift. The whispering from guests grew louder, and a few had their phones out, covertly recording. He wasn't going to argue, not because he was intimidated, but because he knew how these situations played out. Still, he couldn't help but let out a soft, disbelieving chuckle. "You've got to be kidding me." Damien shifted slightly but remained professional. "Sir, we just need to ask you a few questions." Barron held his ground, his expression unreadable. This wasn't about a room or a name on a list anymore. It was about something much bigger. And as he reluctantly picked up his bag and followed Damien toward the security office, he had a feeling this wasn't over. As Barron Trump was led away by security, the atmosphere in the Grand Orion Hotel's VIP lounge shifted dramatically. What had started as a quiet but tense interaction at the check-in desk had now become a full-blown public spectacle. The sight of a tall teenager being escorted by security for no apparent reason immediately caught the attention of other guests. The murmurs turned into outright whispers, and then into something even more impactful: recordings. Several guests, including a business executive, a journalist, and a well-known influencer, instinctively reached for their phones. One woman, sitting nearby with her laptop open, pressed record on her phone's camera. Another guest, a middle-aged man in a tailored suit, frowned and muttered, "That kid wasn't causing any trouble. What's going on here?" A woman with a baby in her arms called out, "Wait, why is he being taken away? What did he do?" But Philip Ross and the hotel manager Eleanor Hayes ignored the growing concern from the guests. Instead, Philip straightened his tie, maintaining his usual air of control. "Just a standard verification process," he mumbled dismissively. "Standard verification?" a man scoffed, now actively recording. "For a guest who already has a confirmed reservation, this is ridiculous." Meanwhile, Barron, still composed, was aware of the growing number of cameras capturing the moment. He had dealt with public scrutiny before, but something about this situation felt different. This wasn't just the usual paparazzi hounding his family. This was real people, real customers, stepping in because they saw something wrong. As he disappeared into the private security room, the videos were already making their way onto social media. One clip, titled "Barron Trump Denied VIP Check-In," showed Philip's dismissive attitude the moment security was called, and Barron walking off without protest. Another, posted by the journalist who had been in the lounge, included the caption, "At the Grand Orion Hotel in NYC, why was Barron Trump just pulled aside when other VIP guests walked right through? Bias or just bad customer service?" Within minutes, the videos started to gain traction, and neither the hotel staff nor Barron himself had any idea just how far the story would spread. Inside the security office, Barron sat in a sleek but sterile room, his bag resting beside him. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, exhaling slowly. He wasn't angry yet, but he was definitely annoyed. He had provided his reservation confirmation, his ID, and his passport, and still he was being treated like some random person trying to sneak into a five-star hotel. He'd experienced awkward encounters before, but this was different. The door opened, and in walked Eleanor Hayes, the Grand Orion's hotel manager. A woman in her late 40s, with a pinched expression and a no-nonsense posture, Eleanor's presence usually commanded respect. But as she surveyed the situation, she gave no sign of concern, only impatience. She sighed, already looking put out. "Mr. Trump, I understand there's been some confusion regarding your check-in." Barron raised an eyebrow. Confusion? More like an unnecessary holdup. Eleanor gave a tight smile, dismissing his frustration with a wave of her hand. "These things happen, we just have to be thorough with our VIP guests." Barron frowned. "I showed my reservation, my ID, and my passport. What exactly needs more verification?" Eleanor didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to Philip Ross, who had entered behind her. "Is the system still flagging his name?" Philip hesitated, but covered it up quickly. "Yes, ma'am. Just an unexpected delay." Barron, however, wasn't buying it. And judging by the muffled chatter outside the office, neither were the guests who had witnessed the entire thing. And the Grand Orion Hotel was about to learn that keeping quiet wouldn't make this problem disappear. Meanwhile, outside the hotel, a black SUV pulled up to the entrance of the Grand Orion Hotel, coming to a smooth but urgent stop. The driver barely had time to step out before the passenger door swung open, revealing Melania Trump, dressed in an elegant yet understated cream-colored coat. Her posture was poised, her movements deliberate, but the sharpness in her eyes told a different story. She was not happy. The hotel's doorman recognized her instantly, his eyes widening as he quickly opened the door. Inside the grand lobby, heads turned. Guests whispered amongst themselves, some even discreetly recording as Melania strode forward with a presence that demanded attention. The front desk staff stiffened. Philip Ross, the concierge responsible for escalating the situation, was still inside the security office with Barron, but the other employees exchanged nervous glances, sensing that things were about to get very, very complicated. Melania didn't wait for anyone to greet her. She approached the front desk, her voice calm but edged with steel. "Where is my son?" A younger receptionist, visibly flustered, stammered as she tapped on her keyboard. Ma'am, we were just handling a verification issue." Melania cut her off with a pointed gaze. "No, you were not handling it. You were mishandling it. Now take me to him, immediately." Before anyone could attempt another excuse, the general manager of the hotel, Daniel Whitmore, emerged from the back office, clearly already briefed on the situation. His expression was tense, but he forced a diplomatic smile. "Mrs. Trump, we sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding." Melania turned to him, her voice never rising but somehow cutting through the tension like a knife. "Do not apologize to me. Apologize to my son, the young man you just humiliated for no reason." A beat of silence. The air in the lobby was thick with anticipation. Daniel swallowed, adjusting his tie, and nodded quickly. "Right this way, ma'am." As Melania followed him toward the private security office, she had already made up her mind. This wasn't just going to be resolved behind closed doors. The Grand Orion Hotel was going to answer for this, publicly. As Melania Trump stepped into the security office, the air inside shifted immediately. Barron looked up from his chair, his expression controlled but clearly frustrated. Across from him, Eleanor Hayes and Philip Ross stood rigid, their previously dismissive demeanor now replaced with nervous tension. Security Officer Damian Carter shifted uncomfortably, clearly aware that the situation had gone too far. Melania's gaze swept across the room, sharp and deliberate. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Explain to me exactly why my son has been held here for over an hour when he had a confirmed reservation." Eleanor, usually composed, stammered for the first time that evening. "Mrs. Trump, we were just following protocol." "What protocol?" Melania cut in smoothly, her voice unwavering. "I have traveled the world. I have stayed in hotels far beyond the caliber of this one. And I have never once seen a protocol that involves detaining a guest with a valid reservation." Philip Ross opened his mouth to speak, but she turned to him before he could utter a word. "And you assumed my son didn't belong here. You made that decision before even checking his reservation properly." Philip's face flushed, his usual arrogance gone. He knew there was no way to argue. The evidence, the hesitation, the extra verification, the unnecessary security intervention was all recorded, both by hotel cameras and by guests who had uploaded clips online. Melania turned to Daniel Whitmore, the general manager who had just entered. "And you, as the leader of this hotel, allowed this to escalate. I expect more from an establishment of this reputation." Daniel swallowed hard, nodding quickly. "Mrs. Trump, please know we take this matter very seriously. We deeply regret any distress caused to your son. We will issue an official statement and ensure this never happens again." Melania nodded, but her expression remained ice-cold. "You will not only issue a statement, you will publicly acknowledge this mistake. And I want an apology delivered in the very place where this started, the VIP lounge." Eleanor's mouth fell open slightly. A public apology? Daniel hesitated, but then realized he had no choice. With the entire world already watching, refusing would only make things worse. Melania turned back to Barron. Are you ready to go? He stood, giving a small nod. Yeah, let's go. But this wasn't over yet. Not until the world saw exactly how the Grand Orion Hotel had mishandled one of its own guests. The Grand Orion Hotel's VIP lounge had never been this silent. Guests who had witnessed the earlier confrontation now gathered in anticipation, their conversations hushed as they waited for what was about to unfold. A camera crew from a media outlet had already arrived, tipped off by the viral videos circulating online. At the center of the room stood Daniel Whitmore, the hotel's general manager, his hands clasped tightly as he faced Barron Trump and Melania Trump. To his right, Eleanor Hayes and Philip Ross stood stiffly, both visibly uncomfortable. Daniel cleared his throat, adjusting his tie. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a moment to formally address an incident that occurred earlier today. One of our valued guests, Mr. Barron Trump, was subjected to an unnecessary delay during check-in due to a failure in our verification process. For that, we deeply regret the inconvenience and any disrespect he may have felt. Philip shifted uncomfortably, while Eleanor kept her gaze on the floor. Melania stood beside Barron, her expression unreadable, watching closely. Daniel continued, "The Grand Orion Hotel prides itself on hospitality and inclusivity. We failed to uphold that standard today. Effective immediately, we will be reviewing our policies to ensure such incidents do not happen again." A murmur passed through the crowd, a mix of approval, skepticism, and curiosity. Melania took a step forward, her voice calm but firm. Respect should never be conditional. Every guest, no matter their name or background, deserves to be treated with dignity. Today was a lesson in that. The room fell silent before a few guests started clapping, followed by more until the entire lounge erupted into applause. But for Barron, this wasn't about the applause. It was about knowing that silence should never be the answer when respect is on the line. As the applause faded, Barron Trump stood beside his mother, absorbing the weight of the moment. He had dealt with judgment before, but this time was different. Not just because of who he was, but because so many people had witnessed it unfold. It wasn't just about a hotel reservation, it was about something bigger. Looking around the lounge, he saw faces that told a deeper story. Guests who had been silently watching, people who had spoken up on his behalf, strangers who had recorded the moment because they knew something was wrong. Many of them would forget this by tomorrow, but for others, this incident had struck a chord. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Respect should never be conditional. That truth extended beyond him. How many other people, those without his last name, without cameras capturing their mistreatment, had faced the same kind of bias? How many had been dismissed, ignored, or humiliated simply because someone decided they didn't belong? As Barron followed Melania toward the exit, he glanced back at the hotel staff. Some avoided his gaze, others looked apologetic. He didn't need an apology from them. What mattered was that they had learned something, just as he had. As Barron and Melania Trump exited the Grand Orion Hotel, the world outside had already taken notice. The videos of the incident had spread across social media, sparking debates about bias, customer service, and the importance of treating all individuals with respect, regardless of their background or last name. Some dismissed it as a simple misunderstanding, while others saw it as a reflection of a larger issue in high-end spaces where assumptions dictate treatment. For Barron, this was more than just a frustrating encounter. It was a moment that highlighted something he had always known but rarely saw so publicly. A name, a look, or an assumption could dictate how someone was treated before they even had a chance to speak. But this time, people had spoken up, cameras had captured it, and the truth had come to light. The Grand Orion Hotel had issued a public apology, but the conversation didn't stop there. News outlets picked up the story, and discussions about bias in hospitality began trending. Policies would change, but more importantly, people would think twice before making assumptions. As Barron settled into the car beside his mother, he realized something. Sometimes, being quiet isn't the answer. Speaking up can change more than just one moment. It can change perceptions forever.